I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:08. Can I get someone to make a motion regarding the agenda, please?
I move to accept the agenda. Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Brenda, or Barbara, I mean?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
I didn't jump up, but I did send you an email asking to add the modular unit. Can we put that under my superintendent's report maybe, or?
If everybody's amenable to that, everybody okay with that? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right, so yeah, we can do that. Okay, so we're gonna start the meeting off with communications with parents, citizens, and staff. We were gonna talk a little bit about the budget as a budget forum, to get public comment from concerned citizens about the budget that went down earlier, so that we can craft what our budget's gonna be to go before voters tonight, later tonight. So I'll open up the floor to anyone who would like to make a comment.
Can you,
Yeah, and please state your name and where you're from, just so that we can put it in minutes.
Tricia Welch from Brandon,
Okay?
did the school receive any money from COVID relief, and if so, how much, and what did you do with it?
Yep.
Brenda, you might help me out with this question about what we got for ESSER funds for the COVID relief. The entire, the annual report and our webpage speaks to what we've done with it and how much we got. We have a page dedicated on the webpage. I don't have the total number in my head, but what we've done with it is we focused it primarily on student services, hiring academic instructional coaches, social emotional learning coach, equity coach, instructional technology coaches. The bulk of the money went there. We also have spent funds on summer programming last summer, and we will again this summer, so that kids could have both enrichment and remedial programs in a fun setting for them over the summer, so that we could keep kids connected and engaged in doing some academics over the summer, but in a fun way. And that's without cost to the parents for our program. We have used a little bit of it on the modular unit that's going to be discussed tonight for Lester, which is completely out of space. Those are the big pockets. Brenda, would you like to? Our business manager is online, so she can give you the amount.
Yes, there are various different pots of ESSER funds or COVID relief funds starting back with 2020. And we've received or have been awarded just under $9.8 million. And everything Jean said is our biggest priorities. And in addition to that is one-to-one computing. We have a large investment, we've made a large investment into devices, and while we were remote, to making sure those devices had data capabilities and internet access. And then we also have some smaller grants that help support our after-school programs.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Another question? then?
Sure, go ahead.
So I'm sorry, I didn't realize that there wasn't going to be a specific budget to look at, so I didn't really study this before I came, other than when I first received it. But if I read this correctly, from 2021 to the proposed budget, the direct instruction line item is going up like $1 million. So, and I just heard that you got almost $10 million from COVID. Can you explain what we needed another $1 million for?
Brenda, do you want to take a stab? Do you want me to take a stab? Are you able to get?
First, one of the things that's important to understand with the almost $10 million from COVID, that is over 3 years. So that isn't in 1 year. That started with 2020 and is scheduled to carry us through 2024.
Still doesn't answer where the extra $1 million is needed.
No.
So the reason for the extra $1 million for this budget is what?
I'm looking at the budget presentation right now to remember it, sorry.
And maybe while you're looking at that, is that line item direct instruction, does that mean teacher salaries?
It means it's more than teacher salaries. It's the classroom teachers, the special educators, the interventionists, it's all of those folks. It's salaries, benefits, supplies, all of, everything that makes up providing direct instruction to students.
In over and above what was spent last year, it's a raise and all of that of $1 million.
No, it's not a raise in teacher salaries of $1 million. No, I want to be really clear about that, but I want to get the presentation for you. Budget presentation. Brenda, I can share the presentation.
I actually just looked it up, sorry. So to add to that, as Jean said, that isn't just salaries, that is everything from direct instruction. So that would include everything from classroom teachers to the unified arts teachers, to their salaries, to their benefits, to vocational tuition charges, to special education, anything that is direct instruction. If you wanted to look at what was salaries, you would probably be look closer to the graph that is done by object instead of the one that's done by department. So think of the functional presentation, which is done by department. And Jean is just pulling up what the major drivers are in the budget that include direct instruction. So as you look at this sheet, everyone can see it, right, Jean?
Yes, it's being shared.
Okay, thanks. You can see Neshabe's pre-K and universal pre-K cost is included in direct instruction. The increases in paraeducator time at Neshabe and OCA or Leicester to bring them up to full-time is also direct instruction. The change in reallocating the SRO contract at the middle school to a middle school health insurance would be an increase in direct instruction. The additional vocational educator to support student job placements at Otter Valley is an increase in direct instruction. An additional increase for a paraeducator. Looks like there's a typo there to meet students' needs. So as you look at the major changes, the majority of them were direct instruction and benefits to students.
Right. So there also were line-by-line adjustments to utilities, which we all know have gone up significantly, supplies and other non-program costs. We have not added new programs. So there's the expenditure by function. These are the charts that she's talking about. So the answer to your question is it's the cost of doing business. It's not new programs other than right-sizing our paraeducators. We have paraeducators who worked under 30 hours a week only at Otter Creek Academy and not at the other schools, and that meant that students went without services for part of the day. And so we wanted to bring them into a full day because we have very high needs this year. Adding the one FTE vocational educator teacher is new. And a new paraeducator at the high school that was needed. Those are that's the only new piece that's gone into this budget. Everything else is basically the cost of doing business, which a large amount of it is salary. I can't tell you the exact amount on this detail, but since 80% of our budget is personnel, then that's where the majority of the money would be. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that it's $1 million raise across the district.
Other questions?
The full report that's in your hand has more detailed
Yeah, I saw that pie charts, 54% was salaries and 25 or something was benefits and all that. Yeah,
Right.
Thank you. Last question I guess I have, since nobody else is asking one. Can you explain to me, one of the things you listed off before was additional equity program or something that was going on? Can you tell me what that encompassed when you talked
Sure.
about equity?
So we did use ESSER funds for this, to hire a staff person who is specifically focused on helping us make sure that we are looking at equity across our curriculum, across our responses, meeting the needs of all of our students. So it's one staff person who oversees an equity committee that any staff person is welcome to join, and we even have some community members on that. She meets with student groups, affinity groups. She meets with principals. She helps us look at our data to see if we are inappropriately, or I can't think of the word I want, utilizing discipline in an unfair way, in a biased manner. So she helps us look at our data and our policies to make sure that we are treating all of our students fairly and giving them the same opportunities.
And how much are we paying this person?
I don't know exactly, I don't have that individual level in front of me, but she is in on a teacher contract. So wherever she fits on the teacher contract is where she is.
Any other questions regarding budget? Do you want to say something?
Yeah, the original question was about bringing forward this budget for the next vote. And there was some discussion about whether we needed to make an the definition of adjusted budget as we bring it back to the
Revised.
voter. Revised, what does that mean? And we haven't got clarity on?
Yes, we do
Okay.
need to revise, it can be revised by $1 if you wish, up
Sure.
or down,
Yeah,
but you do need to revise it to bring it back.
Yeah.
Brenda, we had a recommendation for your consideration.
Are we gonna talk about that later, or do you wanna talk about that now?
Oh, yeah, I guess you have the budget.
I mean, we do have that budget discussion later.
Okay.
This is really just to get public comment from,
You also do have under public comment attached to the superintendent's report a number of comments from community members who did email into Let's Talk. Majority of those comments expressed their, in many cases, frustration that they did not understand why the school ballot was not mailed. So I want to speak to that since this is going out to the public. The legislature okayed this year, once again, just like last year, that municipalities could choose to mail their budget, but the select board would have to choose whether or not the schools can mail their budget. In our 6 towns in Otter Valley Unified, Brandon chose to mail their budget and Pittsburgh chose to mail their budget, which meant that we could, if we wanted to, mail in those 2 towns. Only the law says that for a supervisory union, all 6 towns have to agree to mail. 4 towns, Goshen, Sudbury, Leicester, and Whiting, did not want to mail their municipal ballots. Therefore, we could not, because we only had 2 out of 6 towns. Unfortunately, even though we did put it in the reporter and we did try to get out word that the school budget is different from the municipal budget, that it could not be mailed, the feedback that came through the Let's Talk was that people did not understand that and did not, in some cases, realize they hadn't voted. In other cases, they were mad that they didn't get it in the mail. So clearly, we did not do a good enough job of informing voters that you would have to show up to vote, and we only had 1/3 of last year's voters show up at all.
But this was.
How do you not know you should vote for the budget though?
I can't.
I guess that's the one thing that escapes me. There's always 2 ballots, and it gives a line item stating you're paying X amount of dollars for the school, and
Budget was.
I mean, I
The
think
people that responded.
that may be an
Said.
excuse to start using as to why they didn't vote, but I mean, I just I just can't fathom that someone didn't realize they didn't vote for the school budget.
I don't
I think
have.
it's out of sight, out of mind, Mike. I mean, if you have a ballot in front of you, you're assuming you're voting for everything that you would normally vote for when you go to the polls. So,
All right, I'll
talked to a lot of
have to
people who said that.
Yeah, there were a lot of people who said that.
And then they also said
I'm
that
not
last time.
either. I have to noodle around on that stuff a
Through the
lot.
comments that we
I'll
saw.
have to look again and see if I
Yeah.
can find it.
Okay. Any other questions regarding the budget? We will be talking about it later as to what our plans are based on what we've heard and what we've gotten for feedback. You're more than welcome to stay for that portion of the budget or for our discussions, but we will be talking about it a little later. Yes, sir.
My name's Gene DiLorenzo from the Brandon Reporter, and I think I probably should offer this out to you if you don't already know it, that next Wednesday's edition of the Brandon Reporter will comprise about 7,000 copies of the reporter that will have all of this information about the revote and why the necessity for the revote, as you just asked about, and all the particulars. And Mr. Lynn, Angelo Lynn, who was my boss, has assured me that that's what's going to happen. And since I'm also the delivery person for the Brandon Reporter in this area, as well as the reporter for the Reporter, and chief cook and bottle washer, that's just information. So there will be 7,000 newspapers going out to this community next Wednesday. It's normally about 560. So it's going to be a saturation is what it was,
That's good.
yeah, what it was described to me as. And he said to me, Gene, it's going to be saturation. Get ready to do a lot of lifting, a lot of toting, and it's going to be a long day for you, but thanks for doing it. So, for your information.
Well, thanks for doing
We'll
it.
try and get the
Is
message
that
out.
to the surrounding towns as well, or?
Yes, it will go to, let's see, I'm going to Leicester, Pittsford, Brandon, my normal route in Brandon,
Whiting, Sudbury, and Goshen.
Whiting, Sudbury, Goshen. So it'll be, yeah, it won't be drones flying overhead with
No, thank you, I
things
appreciate you.
fluttering down.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I wouldn't want to be doing all that lifting, but yeah, I thank you for that
We'll
effort.
do our best, and I have a remarkable amount of respect for Mr. Lynn. He's really, really good, and he's committed to this. So, hopefully it will at least get the information out, and people can vote. However they vote in your community, plus or minus, is certainly up to them. But
I also learned today, Sue Gage and Brandon Town Offices told us that the Brandon Select Board actually voted to mail the ballots going forward. So we're going to continue to be in this difficult situation unless the legislature changes it. And to my way of thinking, the only way that's going to work is if they let the school, an SU board, which you are, do whatever the town does in each individual town and not act as one unit. Because otherwise, the reverse can happen. You could mail everything and then Goshen, Whiting, Sudbury, and Leicester don't have any voters showing up. I mean, the law is a mess. Needs to be fixed.
Or we could just go back to town meeting.
That works
That
too.
would be nice. Okay. Barbara, I saw that you had your hand up. Did your question get answered?
It was more that there seemed to be someone talking while Jean was talking, and I couldn't hear Jean. I don't know
I'm
if
sorry.
this someone's background noise or if there was it was just hard to hear Jean because of some other talking going on, so
Okay.
that's all.
All right. That's all right. Okay, so then, is there any other communications with parents, citizens, and staff? We will be talking about the budget as we move forward tonight, through tonight's meeting. Okay, we're gonna move on. Can I get a motion for the consent agenda, please?
I'd like to pull the last item, I forgot the acronym, J something.
The 504 JADA or
Yes.
JBA English Learners?
The
JADA is
JDA,
504?
yes,
Just that one, or?
just that one.
Probably should pull off E, honestly, and then do them all separately.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so can I get a motion for the consent agenda for items A through D, please? Okay,
Who was that?
it was Mike and Greg.
I'm capturing this for Charlene.
Yep, all of those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Barbara?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Now, this
Okay. Oh, okay. All right, so the consent agenda is all set. Now we're gonna move into RAESU policies for action. Can I get someone to make a motion for policy GBED, communicable disease mitigation measures for students and staff? It is a revision,
Move someone.
okay?
Second.
Okay,
Who are you taking?
we'll take Derek this time, so Kevin and Derek. Any discussion? Hearing none, all of those in favor of policy GBED, which is a revision of the communicable disease mitigation measures for students and staff, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and Barbara?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Is Natalie continuing to say aye as well? So Natalie, the only reason I'm saying, I'm asking Barbara is because she's driving, so I can see her hand, but I can't see Barbara. That's, so you don't need to, okay. All right, next policy is policy JBA, English learners, which is also a revision. This is our second time seeing these two, right?
No, you're RNESU.
Oh,
These
that's
are
right.
RNESU policies.
right,
that-
okay.
That's why they're in consent agenda.
Okay,
You have seen it.
I have seen them
Yes,
before,
you
that's
have.
why they look familiar.
Good job.
All right, thank you. Okay, so can I get someone to make a motion?
I'll move that.
Okay, Derek
before we-
Second.
and Mike, thank you. Any, discussion?
Yeah, I wasn't gonna bother with this, but since we pulled it, I'll ask the question. There's a long section on Native Americans in that policy that struck me as somewhat unnecessary because English learners and non-English, native English speakers are covered in the first section. Why do we have this really relatively complex section for Native Americans? It just seemed a little odd to me.
So, two reasons. First, if you look at A, it says you were not born in the United States or whose native language is a language other than English, and then
Yes.
B, I see what you're saying, yeah. So the second reason is, this is the model policy that Vermont School Board Association told us had to be updated and revised. So I took it directly from the model policy as opposed to writing it. I don't have an answer as to why they did that.
No, I don't think it's particularly objectionable. I'm not gonna try to, move that we change it or anything like that. I just thought it was
Noted.
probably unnecessary.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all of those in favor of policy JBA, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Barbara?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, and the last one is policy JADA, policy on section 504 and ADA grievance protocol for students and staff, which is a new policy. Can I get someone to make a motion? Mike? Okay. Second?
Second.
Derek? Thank you. Discussion?
Yeah, I think it might be a mistake that Kristen is the person listed as a 504 building coordinator for Otter Valley. Oh, Christine, never mind.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay,
Fine.
Self-correcting.
Yeah.
it's all right. It's good to know. Good to ask questions. Okay, so nothing else?
No, that was it.
Okay. Any other discussion from anyone else? Okay, all those in favor of policy JADA, policy on section 504, and ADA grievance protocol for students and staff, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. And Barbara?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, policy is good. Okay, we are going to be moving on to our board professional development, and we're going to talk right now about our March 2nd governance training debrief. We did table this from last meeting, So I didn't know if someone who went wanted to kind of explain what we did there and then what kind of came out of it. Derek, Natalie, Barbara.
Well, I mean, I'd like to speak to it, but I'm also not in the best position when I'm driving. So, other than to say, it was really valuable. I've been through these trainings several times, and I've seen AJ Crable before, and he's very inspirational. He's very motivational, and he gets to the heart of why we do what we do, why school boards exist, who we're serving as by being on a school board, and how the choices we make as adults affect students in our care and the outcomes for them, and that it's easy as you know, as adults, as people, to get distracted by other things and lose some sight as to what our main objective is. And through the course of the day, he felt to clarify for me some of the ways in which, you know, over time I may personally not be benefiting kids the best way I can. And that I found to be really, really helpful. And it was also really helpful to do so in fellowship with other board members and staff who have the same objectives. So yeah, I came out of that day feeling that it was extremely worthwhile, and I felt very strongly about my fellow board members who came and took part in it.
Yeah, I agree with everything Barb said. It was very useful and insightful. He asked a lot of questions of us to reflect on, that we used those reflections to have conversations that were kind of enlightening. And one of the threads that we kept coming back to, or one of the questions that he kept throwing out as we were having discussions and raising issues was, what's the purpose of education here? What's your purpose in your community, in your board? What is it that you're doing? And oftentimes, by asking that question, some of what we were bringing up for issues melted away. It's like, no, yeah, right, that's not part of what we're doing. You know, we got distracted again. So it was useful to have a leader take us through a number of discussions and then keep reflecting on what's important and what's our priorities and what's our purpose. And it was useful.
Natalie, did you want to say anything?
I think Barbara put it beautifully. I don't really have much to add other than it just confirmed what my goal is and what my focus is on being on the board, and then just help to define some of the terms of policy governance, and I found that helpful. But I found it very inspiring.
Eric, did you have anything you'd like to add?
No comment.
Okay, fair enough. I will say that the one thing that keeps coming back to my mind, and I've said it to a few board members already in discussions with them since then, is that the one thing that he said to us was a quote, which said, "Student outcomes don't change until adult behavior changes." And the question he asked us was, whose adult behavior has to change in order for student outcomes to change? And I think we all said as somebody else other than ourselves, but it really starts with us. So, and that's important to know. So, the other thing that I think came out of that meeting was that we need to be able to quantify or measure somehow if our kids are, the outcomes that are coming out are what we want. You know, student outcomes are what we're looking for. And to that end, it may mean that we have to change our globe lens, which is our big policy, which, you know, what we want our kids to be able to do by the time they graduate from Otter Valley. And so to that end, at some point, we need to sit down and really look at our ends and make sure that we can put them in a way that is quantifiable or measurable, so that we know that our kids are progressing and becoming those lifelong learners, or that they're going to be able to do what they want to do by the time they graduate. So that's what I got out of it. Any other? Cindy from AJ Crayville's office is going to continue to work with us, specifically around making sure that we have ends that are measurable, so that our superintendent can make sure that the superintendent is doing what we want. Anything you want to add?
No, I'm really looking forward, even in the short time I have left, to talking with Cindy about how to write a really good ends monitoring report and being accountable in a way that makes sense. I haven't figured that out yet.
I think it's a work in progress. I don't think you ever finish it.
Right, you don't ever finish it, but also I think our ends are a little bit, she said this too, a little bit vague, a little bit hard to report out on.
Right. Well, and you had said that was hard for you to write a report on. So, okay. Any other discussion? Okay, so we will continue working on that.
Question. You said there was gonna be some follow-up with
Cindy?
Cindy?
Yeah.
Was there a timeline, timeframe?
No.
In
I
terms of another
actually,
contact?
she sent us something that I actually need to get back to her.
Okay. Thanks.
So I can bring that information to you.
Okay. Next thing on our agenda is the monitoring report 2.4, which is in your packet, that Gina's provided to us for financial planning and budgeting.
Are there any questions? I'm looking for it so I can put it up on the screen if you'd like.
Yeah. We have seen this one before, so you are recertifying, correct?
That's correct. You saw it a year ago,
Yeah.
but it has been reviewed and updated. No significant changes, just the data is updated. The interpretation is pretty much the same.
Anybody have any questions for Jean?
It's just taking a long time to catch up to this.
It's okay. Before we discuss it, does someone want to make a motion to accept the monitoring report 2.4? Derek? Okay. Someone want to second?
Second.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, any discussion? Now we can talk about it. I didn't see any major changes as far as when I went through it. Okay, I'm not hearing any discussion. Of course, you just got it up there. So, in not hearing any discussion, if you're ready to vote, all those in favor of policy 2.4, financial budgeting and planning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Aye.
Okay, ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, board management delegation, which we have 3 monitoring reports of our own that we have, one was tabled from our last meeting, and then we have 2 more that we were gonna do tonight. I would like to, put out a idea for this. So, we have 3 monitoring reports. I know that sometimes we have trouble with this, and so I thought that since we have 10 board members, that if we wanted to pair off into groups of 2, that a group of 2 could take one of these board monitoring reports and meet outside of the meeting and bring it back to our next meeting and tell us what your reasonable interpretation is and what you think evidence is, and then that gives us something to look at and to think about. They're easy ones. It's agenda planning, it's the chair's role, and it's our code of conduct. So I'm just looking for pairs of 2 to take one of those policies and look them over and tell us what you think, so that we can talk about it as a board at our next meeting. Discussion? Thought?
I'm happy to help
Okay,
take one on.
okay.
I'm not clear on the task. Would
Okay.
it be to outline evidence, to interpret the,
Yeah, so essentially what Jean had already put together, if you look at the 2 pages before the policies in our board packet, Jean has already put together what the policy interpretation is for the entire policy 4.0, and so these are the little ones underneath of it. And so all I'm really asking you to do is give me a reasonable interpretation of those, and then give me some sort of evidence that we are or aren't doing it. And if you realize that we aren't doing it, maybe come up with a suggestion of how to make sure we do it, or maybe we don't need to do it, or
right, some
whatever.
examples,
Yeah.
or say maybe.
I mean, it's not something that I'm gonna ask you to rule over for hours.
Sure.
It's just, meet for half an hour, talk it over, see how we do these things, and bring it back to us. And you have a whole month to do it.
Okay, I'll take 4.1.
Well, we don't have 4.1, we have the 3 that are on our agenda,
Oh,
which is 4.5, 3, or 4, sorry. And Natalie, since you spoke up first, which one would you like?
I really don't care. I'll take whichever one people don't want. How's
Okay,
that?
fair enough.
Barbara has her hand up.
Oh, Barbara, go ahead.
I was basically gonna say what Natalie said. I'm happy, I think this is a good idea. I think it's part of our role as a board, and I'm happy to be put with whomever on whichever item. Just fill me in as you need to, okay?
Okay. So who,
I'll jump in too.
Okay.
4.5, the board conduct.
okay? Anyone want to help Derek, or do you want
I'll
to
work
go?
with- Yeah, anyway. We'll take a look at it.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking that we have 3 people who have said they'd do it, and now you just need to have someone paired up with you. So,
I need a buddy.
you do need a buddy. Which one do you want, Kevin?
oh, I want 4.1, so.
Too bad, you already said you wanted one.
Oh, come on, Kevin, you can take one.
You do code of conduct with Derek. Okay, he's getting ready to say yes.
What was that?
4.1 was on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda, so it's the 3 that I have on the agenda, which is 4.3, 4.4, and 4.5. We've already done 4.1 together, actually. Come on, Mike, who you gonna work with? Okay, Natalie, which one do you want? You're gonna work with Mike. Since you guys won't pair off, I'm gonna pair you off.
Job description.
Yep, that's.
Agenda
What hasn't been taken?
4.3 or 4.4,
Yeah.
agenda planning or chair role?
Oh, agenda planning.
4.3.
Okay. All right, so Mike, will you work with Natalie?
Sure.
All right, thank you. And then who wants to work with Barbara on chair's role? Great, thank you. All right. Awesome. All right, so,
I need a buddy?
oh, did you,
Did I get a buddy?
yes, you did, Kevin.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it'll work out great.
I look forward to your email.
Excellent. All right, so we'll bring those back to the agenda.
Lori,
Yes,
Lori, who am I with? I
you
missed
are with
on that.
Greg. You're with Greg. Okay?
Oh, okay, great, got it, thank
Yep.
you.
So, yep, all right, Greg and Barbara. And then Natalie and Mike. Okay, all right. So we're gonna move on, governance process, special budget revote. So we need to finalize and adopt our budget in warning and come up with a communication plan. So at this point, since you said that you had come up with something, I'm gonna move it over to you and Brenda to come.
Yes.
Okay,
It's our recommendation because the budget, unless you, because of the feedback that you've gotten thus far, and because to cut a major program out would require much more significant involvement from the community. It's our recommendation that you come back with a slightly revised budget, and Brenda, our recommendation is it?
Hi. So I was asked to kind of look at what a change in the budget might mean and how it might tilt the tax rate one way or another. So right now, the proposed budget has a unified tax rate of $1.31.8, so it would round up to $1.32. If you wanted to drop it below the 8 so that it stayed at $1.31, you would have to drop 55,000, and I wouldn't recommend that. That's a pretty big steep. That's a position. If you want to drop it just a smidgen, so it drops from 1.318 to 1.317, that's 5,000.
So why are we making a revised budget? Because
Bill-
I asked that question.
Right, you did, and Bill said you need to revise it, and so I went and listened to him and went back and looked at the
So
statute.
we do have.
It says revised, it could be revised up, it can be revised down. It could be revised by $1, it could be revised
But it
totally.
just has to be a different amount.
It's best that way. There are some districts who don't, but I agree with Bill that it's best to follow that language.
All right, well, I would suggest to revise it upward. I just got reminded of that by an email, a text from Devin Karpak. Devin got a grant, I don't know if the board's aware of it, for welding equipment from the American Welding Society, and the new welding equipment was delivered to Otter Valley today. That's what the text was about. Unfortunately, to get this welding equipment set up so it can work properly and safely, it's going to take $120,000 worth of modifications to the shop. I also want to say that I did a little homework in the shop last week and went around and looked up the serial numbers of the equipment in there. The lathe was, the company that made the lathe went out of business in 1961. That's the year the school opened. The lathe was designed in 1948. So I think we may have a lathe in there that's older than the school. I think it might have come from either Brandon or Pittsford High School. The newest woodworking equipment I found in there was the planer, and that was made in 1985. I can't think of the correct word, the dust reduction system is from the very early 70s and had a bad reputation then for quality. So as a board, we've neglected the shop for decades. And it's also very much set up as a 1960s wood shop. It's called OV Tech Education down there. The only tech we have, the only programmable thing is 3D printer, which is very new, just a couple of years old. Otherwise, it's nothing. So we're not preparing kids adequately to go to Stafford. We're not preparing kids to enter the modern workforce. We're not preventing kids to to use tech in the modern world at all. So that's something we have to rectify. We should do it quickly. And I'm proposing this for the welding, not only because of the equipment, because I know that there are multiple students who have come down to the shop desirous of using the welding equipment. They've heard about it, they're eager to use it. And, you know, they're sophomores and juniors, so we need to act. If we don't get this up and running for the juniors next year, we'll lose them. They won't be able to develop a great skill in the modern world. The equipment will be going to waste as well. So for all of those reasons, I'm going to propose $120,000, a move to add $120,000 for the purposes of preparing a welding room in the oldie shop.
Second.
That was Greg.
So we can.
Yep, again, go ahead.
So how much would that increase the tax rate by?
Well, at 55,000 to drop by 0.8,
Yeah, so 150 is all.
1.6 higher, what cents
Yeah.
higher?
Okay.
I have a. I don't want to add, I agree with that it's a worthy cause. I don't think it's worth adding $120,000 to our budget at this point. What I would rather see us do is take our funds that we have, what are those funds? Reserve funds, thank you. I'd much rather see us take our reserve funds and do that project to get it up and going.
Do we have that still? Do we
Oh,
still
sure,
have
yeah.
600, 700,000?
He said 120, so yeah.
No, I know, I just couldn't
How much do
remember.
we have in reserve?
We can ask Brenda.
It's in the annual report, I don't have it in my head.
Brenda, you have your hand up, so she might be able to answer that question for us.
So first I want to tell you, this is the first time I'm hearing any of this conversation. And that's a little bit sad to me because I work very closely with the facilities team. I would, if you were to add 120, I think you said 120 or 125, I wasn't sure I heard you. It would, if you add 125, because I think that's, or 120, because I thought that's what I heard you, the tax rate would jump up to $1.32.5, so it would almost jump to $1.33, so jump a penny because of just the rounding. And the question in regards to how much we have in the facility fund, that is an annual report. I can pull it right up because I don't remember those things off the top of my head because I don't trust my memory on things like that. And we will be presenting and bringing forward a list of facility information. We've already started working on it. We have it slated for your May 4th, I think, meeting. But this is completely new to me, so I'm not aware of where the costs come from or what the construction that is needed. It is also going to exceed Vermont bid law, and I have no idea if it needs engineering, if we're talking about equipment. I'm not sure about this, and I just want to share that.
Okay, well, it's for HVAC and additional electric power, and Devin has priced it out. I'm sure he can share that information with you.
So there is a process if he's priced it out to bring it forward through facilities, and he should be doing that.
Question. Can we have that in our next facilities?
Well, I think, so here's what my thought was. So I don't feel comfortable adding $120,000 just for something that, that the administration hasn't heard from. But I also think that something of that, you know, depending on what exactly it is and the infrastructure to the room, and because I've heard some inklings about this, I would be more prone to use those facility funds for that, just because it is something, it's a one-time thing. But Bill, you had your hand up.
Yes, the Facilities Committee, Rutland Northeast Committee are not available.
There is no committee for facilities. We are, it's an Otter Valley building, so it's an Otter Valley.
And we bring a
Issue.
facilities report to this board, it's coming in May, to plan ahead. We have a long-term facilities plan, and then you make individual annual decisions based on that report.
Right.
We don't know what the reserve fund is.
She
We aren't prepared for that tonight, it's on next month's agenda.
But that's why I'm saying that I don't think we should be raising the budget for that particular item. I think we need to think about whether or not, what our budget is, and then this discussion needs to happen at our May meeting.
Can we have that at our May meeting?
Sure.
Put on that facility, that specific one?
Yep. Is that okay
Yeah.
with
that's
everyone?
what
I mean, I realize it's,
I'd like a more, that's a great discussion to have, but I'd also like to address a specific issue because I really feel like the clock is ticking for these kids and
I hear where you're coming from, I don't know that tonight we're prepared to do that.
Okay.
So that's all. So if we bring it back at the next meeting, I think that,
Is there this motion on the floor?
there is a motion on the floor, so we can vote on that if you're prepared.
The motion is to increase the budget by $120,000 to modify the
Second,
tech ed
Welding.
room to prepare a welding room.
okay? So all those in favor?
Aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All those opposed?
Aye.
No.
Nay.
Are you an aye or are you
You're
opposed?
nay, right?
Well, I'm a nay. I'm
Yeah, okay.
opposed.
You just
Oh,
confused
nay.
me because you're.
Okay, opposed,
Aye.
okay? And Barb,
Nay.
okay, and Natalie, you're a nay.
Did Greg answer?
Yeah, he said no. So we're 4 and 4? Okay, so I'm gonna vote and say nay as well, because I don't think we're prepared for that tonight.
But we'll have it on our facility.
We will have, I told you we would do it on our May facilities, so yes,
when's the facility scheduled for?
next month, May, whatever the first meeting in May is. Okay?
Can I ask,
Yep,
for that, can you come back with concrete numbers for what? You know, a proposal? And maybe a phased plan as
I
well?
think Devin has a lot.
Does everything have to happen all at once?
well, the process has to happen, so hopefully Devin will have
Right.
had a chance to meet with Brenda and the facilities team and make sure that we are prepared for that discussion in May. So we will make sure I will make sure that happens. Okay?
Do you have any deadlines we're up against
For,
for funding source, for grants, for
not that I'm aware of.
equipment? Anything like?
No.
Okay.
No, and again, this is the first that Brenda and I have heard of this.
We got the welding grant, the equipment showed up today, so it is here. And now in order to make it viable, we need to do some
Take
structural infrastructure work essentially in the
That's
welding.
Brenda's hand is back.
Yes, Brenda.
I just want you to understand the scope of this. The welding grant was $10,000. And we do have a process to apply for grants. And through that process, if there was a need to spend another $125,000 in order to actually implement and use the equipment, that should have been shared before the grant was even written.
Well, so hopefully maybe there's more information that we don't know that you will find out, so let's hope that. So we need to make sure that all the interested parties get together to come back to us in May. Fair enough? Okay. Okay, so back to our vote. Does anyone else want to make a motion regarding our budget that we're going to be bringing back to the community?
I move that we revise it just down by 5,000 like you were suggested.
Okay, so that brings it down to the 1.317?
Just to make a little dent. I mean,
Okay.
I wish it was the exact same amount, but if it can look like something, it's great, but it's
Okay.
important that we don't take away. We don't want to see new programs or.
Right. No, that's true.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
Can you repeat that, please?
Sure, so
Did anybody second it?
yes, Bill did. So what Greg is saying is that he would like to, so our budget right now is for 1.318 dollar amount, $318. He is saying to reduce it to the 1.317, which would reduce the budget by $5,000. And Bill seconded that.
But it's still 1.32
No, it's
regardless, is that right?
so it goes from 1.318, which it is currently, or what was our budget originally, and he is suggesting that we bring it down to 1.318, so it's 0.001 reduction, which is a $5,000 reduction in the budget, total, dollar-wise. Okay? Do you have thoughts on that?
I just, I don't like the idea of just removing money just to appease people. I want to have the money that we're removing, a reason for that. And I want to know where we're taking it away from and what the impact will be when we take that $5,000 away. I know it doesn't really seem like a lot, but it could be a lot. And to me, it's still $1.32, so it's not really making that much of a dent for the public.
Okay. Bill?
Am I correct in recalling the chat room comments? Every one of them said it was due to the confusion rather than to being dissatisfied with the budget.
There were a couple of people who said otherwise, but yes, for the most part, that was what most of those comments were.
Majority, yeah.
Yes, majority.
Are we required to revise the budget?
Yes.
Yes, we are required to make some sort, we could revise it by $1 if we wanted to, but we are required to make a revision.
Or even 50 cents for that matter.
Nah, we do everything in dollars. So,
To answer the $5,000.
I was gonna let I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. Tricia. I was gonna let Tricia ask her question.
I was just gonna say, you're basing this conversation on some people who wrote in who did not vote, that it was because they didn't know they weren't voting, as opposed to all the people who did vote, that voted no. And you don't know that's because...
We don't know that the people that wrote in actually voted or not voted, to be completely honest. We put it out there as a let's talk for people to tell us, to give us their comments, but we don't know whether or not those people voted or not. They were just giving us our opinion as to why it may have gone down. Okay, so yes, would you like to talk about the 5,000?
So Brenda and I talked about that as we brought this recommendation, and because we're hiring so many replacement staff this year, I want to be careful not to say new people because that's misleading. It's people have resigned, myself included, and you're hiring replacements. And we never quite know what benefit package they'll come in at, so we would take this out of the benefit package line. You never, that's a crystal ball look. So it does not eliminate, to Natalie's question, it does not eliminate a position or a program.
Can you also tell me, or remind me, either Brenda or Jean, our budget, even though the number increased, the budget, or the tax rate was actually going down, correct?
Yes, actually, if you could speak to that, Brenda, because I think it is important to speak to the fact that even the $0.318 or 7 is a decrease from last year.
Yes, so the budget that we proposed, and this one, if it was reduced by the $5,000, would go down by 5.5 cents or 4%. So it is a decrease. That is before common level of appraisal is applied, and it's filtered down through to each of the different towns. But even with that, the changes are based on declines in common level of appraisal. So just giving you a quick synopsis, Brandon's common level of appraisal dropped, which means houses are selling higher than their grand list, which is good if you're a seller. But it means the grand list is undervalued. So this, like the first budget, would increase their taxes by 2 cents. Again, depending on rounding. Goshen, their common level of appraisal stayed essentially the same, so they would see a 5 cents decrease. Lester's common level of appraisal declined a little bit, so they would see a level or an equal, no increase. Pittsford also declined a smidgen, but they would still see a 1 cent increase. Sudbury declined about 6%, they would see a 2 cent increase. And Whiting declined the most from being appraised at 105%, dropping to 95%, so they would see an 8 cent increase.
Thank you.
I want to address the question we got a little bit. We did have a discussion about the motivations for people voting no and the meeting after town meeting day. And we know that people vote no for various reasons in Vermont. We also know that when there's a no vote in Vermont, sometimes that can start a cascade. So we talked through all of that, and there's no intention to insult the voters or to make people feel like we're trying to pull one over on them. Really what the school board is doing is making a bet that there were numerous yes voters who were confused. And since everything else, certainly in Brandon passed, I think everything in Pittsburgh passed as well, but we're taking the chance that that voters intended to approve the school budget as well overall. But there's no intent to try to make anybody angry or insult them or to feel like they've been slapped in the face.
Okay, other discussion? Are you ready to vote on that proposal? Okay,
Lori, before you do that, would you put a number in? Because you'll have to actually vote a number.
oh, can
Will
you tell
you
me
give
what?
us the number?
Yeah, thank you.
I will.
Thank you.
22,705,955.
Okay,
And so you have to approve the new warning with that number in it.
all right, so that's the number, you're okay with that because you made the motion, correct? Okay, and who seconded it?
Bill.
Bill, and you're okay with that too? Okay. All right, so, all those in favor of finalizing our budget to the number of $22,705,955, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Can we raise hands?
Aye.
I just want to make sure. Aye. And Barbara?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous.
And so you've adopted the budget and the warning?
Well, we've adopted the budget,
Budget,
so we need to do the warning next. Is that in our
I
packet? I don't see it, I don't think.
don't know, it's the exact same warning that was, we had last time, only with the different number in it.
Right, it's with the revised number.
With
You have a
the-
couple of new numbers that you have to put into it.
Here it is.
Thank you. What are the new numbers?
So the new number is a total budget of 22,705,955.
Okay,
And then I think the next thing it asks you is the education spending amount.
yep.
Can you read it to me so I can give you the right numbers,
It
please?
says $17,018 per pupil.
Really?
$17,048, that's what it says.
Read this section.
Oh, it says, it is estimated that this proposed budget, if approved, would result in education spending of $17,048 per equalized pupil.
So now it's $17,044 per equalized pupil.
Okay, and
And
then,
it's an increase of 9.7%. Is that what it asks next?
yeah, because it says 9.72 at the moment. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we will get that fixed and we'll have Charlene and myself sign that. But I do need everyone to agree to that.
You need
So
a motion.
Yep, I was getting there. Someone want to make the motion?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. Any discussion?
Tuition rate is up, but the tax rate is down and the budget's down.
That's correct.
That's correct.
And hopefully the
The
paper
yield is up.
puts that in the headline. this
Yeah,
time.
that's right, it's gonna be the headline, right?
So that people,
What's-
the taxpayers know that their taxes are not going up.
That's right.
Taxes are going down.
I'm sorry, I'm lost. I don't know what the motion's on the floor.
Oh, the motion is to approve the warning
Okay.
with those numbers that we just discussed.
Thank you.
Yep.
That 17,044,
1,044, yep.
is it?
Mhm.
Can you say anything about how that relates to the statewide average?
Barbara, or Brenda?
Brenda?
Brenda, sorry.
Yes, I can. So the Vermont Commissioner estimates what the average is going to be so that you're looking at the same years. And it's a good point, and it's something we should highlight. The estimated state average for fiscal year 2023 is actually $18,023 per pupil. So we are almost a full $1,000 below the state average.
Right.
And I think it was Greg who indicated, or somebody indicated, that the yield is higher, and I wanted to confirm that yes, that the yield is much higher, and that's because the yield has a inflationary factor built into the calculation, and we all know that inflation is higher.
Barbara?
I just want to speak for those of us, myself, for example, who are absolutely bamboozled by all of the fancy numbers that Brenda can crunch. And I can honestly never explain to anyone the basis for these numbers. I'm sorry to even admit it, but I will admit it because I feel like it's crucial to our talking points when people ask us, why is it going up 9%? Because I've had people ask me that, and then I am a deer in the headlights because I'm thinking, no, wait, but the taxes aren't going up. So however we message this, let us remember that we are, as Kevin said, we're not trying to pull a fast one, but there's lots of complicated numbers, and so and I'm mindful of what headlines can convey when it says budget's going up 9%, that we know what something to say beyond that headline so that it's not misleading people the wrong direction. If I'm making sense here,
yes,
I think the numbers can be confusing, and we just
Barbara,
need to be prepared to defend and
even
explain.
saying that can be confusing because it's the ed spending that's going up the 9%. So the difficulty with the education funding formula in Vermont are all the different numbers, each of which have different percentages. I mean, I think it is key points that the tax rate is going down by 5.5 cents, that our ed spending is nearly $1,000 under the statewide average ed spending, and that inflation is a part of the picture that we have in front of us.
Yes, thank you for reiterating those points and clarifying that, Jean.
Okay. So, any other discussion regarding the warning? Yes, I see you. Natalie?
My screen froze, so maybe this was said, but can we say how the taxes have gone down or will go down?
Yeah.
On the warning, under Article 2?
Not on the warning. The warning language is legalistic language that you don't get to play with. So this has to be communication that goes out.
So a press release or a letter to the citizenry is perfectly fine to say these things that give the full flavor. There is talk in Montpelier of changing the state aid formula, but I don't think that will take effect until next year, if it happens at all. I was wondering if Brenda or Jean had heard anything different from their sources.
They are not anywhere near finalizing that. And they're even going back and forth between two different ways of doing the new weighting formula. They haven't decided.
Brenda?
Thanks. So we received a public records request from a friend of mine who shall be named nameless. And it required me to look at kind of pre-Act 46 tax rates. And so I went back to Otter Valley's, the high school tax rate before Act 46 came into play, and it was exactly this number. So, considering that inflation has happened a lot since 2010, actually, I think is the year I went back to. I'm sorry, 2015. I think we'll try to incorporate that into our message as well.
So the inflation in general spending went up about the same as the inflation in school expenses.
No, actually, we've leveled. Our tax rate is the same today as it was in 2015. So we've been keeping our budget aligned to our pupils to the point where taxpayers are paying the same today as they did in 2015.
It's a good thing to put out there. Okay. Other discussion regarding the warning?
Did we do everything we have to do?
We just have to approve it. We haven't actually voted.
Oh, the other part.
For the warning, yeah, for the numbers. Okay, so all those in favor of the warning as it, discussed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Barbara?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, open board seats. As you know, we've received, multiple letters of interest regarding the, well, I wouldn't say multiple, I don't think we've actually received any letters of interest for Leicester, but we've received multiple ones for Pittsburgh and the at-large. In talking with Jean, we cannot actually pick someone tonight because if we were to decide that, we would have to put them on the ballot since we have a revote coming up on April 26th. So, and also some of the letters of interest that we received were just, hi, my name is, I'm interested. Let me know what's next. So I would like to, as a board, come up with maybe 3 questions that we want to send out to all of the interested parties that they can answer that would help us determine who would work well on this board with us. And I don't know what the questions are, I did not go that far, but I would like us to, as a board, come up with those questions so that we can find out.
I got a text from Devin Fuller, who wrote a very brief letter.
Yep.
When I was walking in, it said that he intended to be here tonight to talk and answer questions, but that he had to work.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I honestly don't want that kind of discussion. I mean, I want board members, prospective board members to be here, that's fine, but in the past, we have not necessarily let them talk if not all those prospective board members were here. So that's why I would like to come up with 3 questions. Doesn't have to be 3, it could be 4, it could be 2, I don't know. But something that allows us to ask, maybe, what's their interest in getting on the school board? What are some things that they feel that they can bring to the board that would help us move student outcomes further? I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. So I just need to know what you guys think of that. Natalie, I see you out there.
My first question would want to know why they want to do it. Why now?
Okay?
What is their interest?
I'm just writing the questions down. So. Okay, so you mean as in like why now? Why didn't you just run for the seat earlier? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Why do they want to do it, and why are they prepared to do it now?
Okay.
What experience they may have had working on committees in the past. And a little bit about themselves and how long they've lived in the community, their knowledge of the community.
Okay, so I'm hearing lots of questions in all of this. So one was, why do they want to be on the board? Why are they prepared to do it now? And what committees have they been on would be one question, and we can all tweak these or come up with different ones. The other one that you're talking about is that we're asking them to tell us about themselves, how long have they been in the community, what have they done in the community and previously, or, is that what you're saying? Yeah,
Can I make a recommendation?
Yeah.
yep,
Can we kind of think about what questions we kind of want to ask and then email them to you?
I think we need to craft them tonight, because we need to get these out to them so that they can get them to us for our May meeting. And if you come to me with all of your questions, then I have to email them all back out to you, and that's doing board business, so it really needs to happen here. I'm sorry.
Okay. You just choose the best three and say we're going with that.
We could
Oh,
give
well,
you the
do I
authority.
get to pick the
I'm letting
best
you-
three?
I'm letting you
know-
pick.
Oh, is that, oh,
That's
well,
what I'm saying.
now you're saying, okay. I don't know.
We have done this before,
Yes,
so it's
Yeah.
not,
10 questions normally tend to be rather generic.
yes, they do.
Experience.
I'd like to know what intentions they have for the board, where they, if we say something like, where do you see the schools in 5 years, everybody's gonna say they want the schools to be excellent, so that won't help us. But is there a special area of interest that you would bring to the board?
Okay. Okay.
Actually, I got a question for you guys. As a prospective board member, how come it's been so difficult to get people to join?
Because it's so much fun.
I can tell.
it's, yeah,
I mean, for months, you guys have been looking for people.
yeah.
Why is it so difficult to get people?
Well, we were asking that question.
It might be tied into just the whole labor market. I mean, everywhere people are looking for people. Maybe we're just another organization that's missing people, just like every business.
Yeah, I would also say that there's a great book about declining membership in all sorts of organizations. It's called Bowling Alone. It was pre-Google, so it's old. But even then, membership in everything has gone down in our lifetimes. Garden clubs to
Fire departments?
to everything.
Yep.
And so we're partly victim of that. People are on Facebook. People don't want to get up and come to a meeting after they eat. We're running into all of that. COVID has made people nervous. I think that people are getting over that now, but all of those things. Yeah, I don't have a really good answer, specific answer for you, just all of those things.
Well, considering my son is in kindergarten and we bought a house here, we plan on being here for a long time. I'd like to see the school go in a direction that produces people who are respectable and can be a value to the community, and not people who are just self-centered and don't think or care about other people. I see a lot of division, I don't see a lot of unity. Front doors fortified like Fort Knox. Are the teachers trained in any way about risk assessment? Can you diffuse a situation before it elevates? What do you do to make sure the boogeyman doesn't come off the school bus? I know what you do to keep the boogeyman out the front door. I want to make sure that my son has a safe, healthy education. That's my interest, to be on the school board.
What's your name, sir?
Joe Repertoire.
Thank you.
I would like to make one comment, is that perhaps a bit of this conversation might argue in favor of meeting some of these people in person. In a world that's so atomized and broken into these boxes, human touch is an important thing.
And that was actually going to be another question of mine. Why is the informational meeting going to be virtual? Why can't you have it in person? I bet there's a lot of people who would much rather show up at a meeting than try to Zoom or Skype or anything else when we have such a wonderful internet. I got to shut off every piece of electronic in my house
in order to have a video meeting with somebody, and that might not even be a guarantee, because the wind can blow. Okay, you want more people to participate? Get off of the internet, get back in person.
I'm afraid you're wrong on that one. We
did have that.
Yeah.
had an informational meeting and only one person showed
Really?
up.
Yeah.
Wow.
We made sure.
Actually had 0 in historical times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, people aren't coming out,
No.
but we did have an in-person one.
Yes, we did, back in February. Okay, so going back to the questions, I have 3 here. One of them is, why do you want to get on the school board now? What are they prepared to do for the board? What committees have they been on? Tell us about yourself, how long have you been in the community, and what should we know about you? And the third one being, what are your special areas of interest to being on the board? What are your intentions for becoming a board member? Is there something I'm missing? Is there something we need to change, tweak?
I think the last one's unnecessary. What are your intentions for becoming a board member? I think that,
I think it's answered in the first one.
It's all redundant.
Okay, that's fine. All right,
Greg, I interrupted.
No, I'm just still thinking.
okay. Well, I'll take those 2, and we still have some other stuff to talk about, so keep it in the back of your mind, and if you wanna, can come back to it.
Can I clarify?
Yeah.
But when you said not the, what is your intention, Kevin, I thought you were referring to keeping the one, is there a special interest that you would bring to the board? Is
Yes.
that correct?
I'm just gonna, kind of smush them together in the first one with the third one. Okay? All right. So, RNESU board update. Mike, since you're here, would you like to tell us what we did with the RNESU board last?
Yeah, we went on, we talked about the
But you were there.
I was
You
there.
were
Well, I
there,
had
right?
trouble at the beginning, remember? I could hear you, but you guys couldn't hear me.
That was good. No, I'm just kidding.
Policies.
Yeah.
We went over policies.
We did go over policies.
You had a presentation. Do you recall the presentation?
Yes,
Yes.
Brenda gave a presentation on the facilities and what they do
Finance,
and
facilities,
everything.
transportation, food services, everything that her office does, after-school programs.
We also,
And it should be on the RDSU website. if
That
you'd
was
like to
actually a
see
pretty
it.
good presentation.
Yes, it was a
I
good
forgot about it, but
presentation.
it was good.
Now you got it.
I'll help you out there, Mike.
there you go. We also reorganized at our last meeting. Who's our
Both
chair?
boards have a new
Board's chair.
person.
Yep, both are, right, so there's 2 new members to the RNESU, Mike is one of them, and then Robin Crosman from the Barstow board is new. Who's our clerk? Barbara, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's because she wasn't there right at the beginning of the meeting.
Sorry.
Yeah, so that's how she got elected clerk. I am still chair of that board.
That's usually how it happens, Lori.
Well, yeah, you don't show up, that's how you get elected.
You were talking about the Rutland Northeast rebranding activity?
No, we did not, no, because we had a lot of reorganization stuff to do, plus we had our meeting with Brenda, or our presentation from Brenda, and that was really good, so.
I
That
felt
may
like
come-
I was in the same meeting here when I was there. It was pretty much all the same.
It kind of is,
But it went faster.
Reorganization.
Yeah.
It went much faster.
Yeah.
I don't think we did anything else other than
We
that.
didn't, just the presentation.
Okay. All right, so that's your update. Any questions for the RNESU board members? Other than your question about whether, no, we did not talk about that. It has not come up yet. So, all right. Arnold District Road School Bell donation to the Brandon Museum update. Bill?
Oh, we had an exciting meeting today of the 6 members of the ad hoc community board bell committee. And we did get up on top of the roof, and I was hoping to have pictures tonight, but I can send them out by email. And the bell is there, and it's estimated 50 to 100 pounds. It's a pretty good sized bell. And we sat there and said, now what? And we thought about different ways of getting the thing out. But actually, what the group came up with is that keep the bell where it is, raise it up a little bit so that we can put some glass windows around it or some plexiglass around it, and keep it as a visible and workable bell in the school. And then develop some kind of ritual that would go with it, such as the sixth graders would get to ring the bell on their way to Otter Valley.
Right.
So for anybody who doesn't know where this bell is, the little red schoolhouse at Neshabie, which is now our art room, there is a bell in that building up in the top. And so there was discussion about putting that bell, taking the bell out because it is not functional at the moment, and putting it in the Brandon Museum at the Stephen A. Douglas House, and letting people see it, touch it, whatever. And so, but now it seems that we're going to make it functional and leave it where it is.
And Stephen Chippeter was there from the Historical Museum, and he was much more in favor of having it used in the school than having it as an inert exhibit in the library. And so that looks pretty good, and we were able to do the, what do you call it, the provenance of the bell, and we can say with pretty good assurance that this thing was there, and Stephen A. Douglas did go to that school with that bell in it at the time.
Nice. Nice.
Provenance is an important thing for the history side of things.
Yeah, and in case anybody's wondering, he was born in 1813, so we'd be talking about mid-1820s.
What is next? What happens next?
What happens next is McKernan Group is going to rummage around in their supplies and come up with the windows that will be there, and then we do some work on the cupola, which doesn't go through. You can't get up from underneath it, you have to get on top and go down. But
Just curious, is there a cost attached to this?
I wouldn't worry about it.
Duly noted.
Is this gonna happen after school gets out in June? Or are you planning on doing it sooner than that? Like,
Well, I would like to set June as a target date, just because deadlines are good things to have.
okay. Well, I just didn't, I would assume we don't want kids around when we're trying to raise a 100-pound bell and it, you know.
Well, the adults were pretty good at.
Well, they
sliding
use
on
that
top.
room every day for art, so. Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure we were,
Yeah, well,
safety.
just for safety reasons, we made sure that the door was locked where the is it north, south, east, or west? Anyway, that door was locked, and they had to go in the back door.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion for Bill regarding the school bell? Okay. Our next point of order is volunteering in the schools discussion. This was on our agenda in February, and we moved it to tonight because the people that wanted to have the discussion were not at that meeting.
One other thing, Angela Lynn was there taking pictures, which I hope will come out before the budget vote.
Good. Okay.
We've had reports, so I'm not going to bother to quote anything. We've had reports from the superintendent over the last couple of years, and we had the report in October about our test scores that paint a tough picture for our school district. Student morale, I think, is low. I think there's a certain amount of, talking about the high school, which I know better, disillusionment among students. I think there's a certain level of discouragement among students that leads to poor behaviors. And what the community needs to know is that your kids need you, and that we need community support in multiple forms. I personally think there need to be more adults in the building in the high school. Behavior in the hallways is bad, language is bad. There have been some vandalism problems. And I just think the kids need supportive adults. I think they want to learn as much as ever, as much as always, but they're having a hard time readjusting. And that rather than waiting for a school board meeting where we have 50 angry parents here, we need to ask 50 involved parents to be part of our school and to be involved in it. I know that causes different problems for the administration, but I do believe that the kids need supportive adults and respond to that. So that's the short version of what I wanted to say.
Given our limitations as a board for making decisions that are more management-based, I'm wondering what are the parameters for encouraging volunteerism, and how does that work? How would that work? And
Don't you have to, go through, you gotta be fingerprinted, you have to, I don't know, there's a bunch of logistics that go involved with that.
Basically, if you, we can have volunteers in the school, they cannot ever be alone with students. So they always have to be with the staff member unless they have gone through a background check, which includes fingerprinting and the sex offender registry and a number of different background checks. A background check, I'm gonna estimate is around $50 a person. And if we were to have 50 engaged people willing to do that, I would also say that we probably need somebody to oversee that process. Because that's an awful lot. It's difficult enough in HR to manage with one person, the background checks that exist now. So it could be done. You'd have to decide if the board wishes to build paying for the background checks in the budget. And in a sense, you have just created 50 new employees even though you're not paying them. So there's management of those people.
in terms of having a cadre of, foster grandmothers or readers that come in and support the elementary school or whatever.
Who always come into an existing classroom, they aren't alone.
Right, but it's up to the principals to coordinate who comes into the building and manage those kinds of things.
And that's 50 is a pretty significant influx into the high school. So again, I think you need somebody overseeing that as opposed to the occasional Four Winds project or foster care.
Well, that's the other thing. Someone's 50 people, but I think 9 times out of 10, you're gonna get 50 people who's like, oh, I can only do this day. I can't do this day. I don't think it's gonna be hard to manage.
How do you match it up in a useful way?
Great.
You just need Beth Goldberg to come in and watch some Goldbergs.
Okay. Greg?
I love the idea of it. I'm just thinking back to when my kids were in elementary school and they would always have people come in and read. But I feel like it should come from, the grassroots teachers themselves, like thinking, I would love to have this person help me do this thing. And instead of imposing it on teachers and staff, like, oh no, now I have to worry about this volunteer.
It may be presented in a way that if you could have a volunteer, how would you use them, or would you use them?
Would you want one?
Natalie?
I think something like this probably needs to be more strategic, and it needs to be more like a program that somebody might oversee, and we shouldn't just send volunteers in here and there. That maybe the first step is to find out from the schools what they need from us, instead of us going in and saying, oh, here's somebody to help you. It should be some kind of strategic program that we set up, and then we figure out how many volunteers we need and where we need them. I don't, I mean, I love the idea of volunteers, but it needs to be worthwhile, I think, in the end. Because if if I'm gonna take time off of work to do it, which I would do, I wanna make sure that my time is being spent wisely and is good use to the school.
In past schools, my wife has volunteered, and most of the time, it's just been in the hallway. Extra eyes, extra people coming in, busy times of the day, several mothers would be walking the hallways, and just basically extra people there. Nobody went through any kind of background check, but by the same token, nobody was in direct contact with anybody. It was all communal space, but it was extra eyes, extra ears, it was, hey, Mrs. So-and-so, there's my friend's mom, more than just, oh, there's Mr. So-and-so, I gotta take a test with him later, As far as background checks go, you can go to the sheriff's office, they do them all day long, okay? And you can make it as a part of, well, if you decide that there is some kind of program that they want to do and you're going to take that next step and do a background check on it, make it a part of their cost. This is what we require. If you'd like to, you can go down to the sheriff's office and you can get a background check. Doesn't have to be on the school's expense. So I used to volunteer every Friday, was parent day in my son's pre-K. And 2 parents came into the classroom and we were there, we worked with the kids, with the classroom, but we were extra people that were there to help out. And it really didn't take much to do it. And I believe, if I'm correct, if I heard you right, Kevin, that was fairly much what you were talking about, just having extra people in the halls to mitigate, try to stop something from getting out of hand, and those types of things.
Yeah, very much so. Gene, I don't know if maybe I can forward this to the board, that video of the dads in Louisiana. That's kind of what made me think of this.
Yeah.
I don't think, if teachers want someone in the classroom, that's great. But I think the main thing is to show the kids that your community cares about you. And this is how you act as an adult in the world. I mean, I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with a kid in one of the classes I'm helping with, who, he's a senior, he has a terrible mouth, and he said something like, this is how it is in the real world. And I said, no, it's not how it is in the real world. It's not how adults interact with each other, except in very specific circumstances. This isn't the way you should be talking to your grandmother. You're not respecting yourself, and you're not respecting the process of learning or the other kids in the class, blah, blah, blah. And this kid's a great kid. That's the message they need to get from the entire community. So,
But to that point, Kevin, parents, you talk at school how you talk at home. I know a lot of parents who swear and talk in front of their kids and they use it. I mean, it's become, granted, 20 years ago, no way.
Maybe the real world.
I would never talk like that in front of my father. I mean,
yeah, but
now you're seeing it where parents talk like that in front of their kids, and then kids talk like that in front of them.
I completely agree, and that's why they need another model. Kids who grew up in those circumstances need another model of what it means to be an adult, what it means to be a citizen, what it means to be a caring member of the community. And that's what I'm looking for, is that people just to model that, just by being there, just by saying, hey, you shouldn't talk that way. Don't run in the hallway and knock people over, stuff like that. I think that's all I need. Tricia?
I really support this idea. All through my kids' school, I always volunteered, went into classrooms or whatever. When the kids got into the high school, I was that kind of person in the hall, keeping eyes out, trying to keep, the pressure level down. But I also know a lot of days I got thrown up against the wall, I got sworn at, that kind of stuff. So when you're talking about volunteers in the younger grades, it's one kind of a program. When you're talking about kids in high school, like what you're talking about, that's a different scenario. And I think you have to, and I'm not saying you shouldn't have people there, I really think you do need to have people there. But you have to be really clear about the parameters of what can I as an adult do when somebody slams me against the wall, or what happens to the kid if they do something like that, or even another kid. I mean, there has to be, some real clear definitions of what you can and can't say and can and can't do with a student. And that's where it could get a little tricky when you're talking about high school students, but I agree it's something that's needed, but you have to be really careful about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, what's that
I think it's wind.
No, that's something
Sounds like
wrong.
a cat.
That's been going on for a while. It's like somebody's drilling something.
Okay, so, other,
So I'm not bringing a motion tonight, but I do think this is something that we need as a group to consider and to think through. And I don't think we're at the point where children would be, even the high school kids would be violent toward adults or threatening. I don't want us to get to that point.
I would also like to say something, but we'll let Bill say what he wants to say first.
As people have discussed, I think you have to match the people, the kids with the people in lots of regards. There needs to be somebody that cares about this swearing, nasty kid and takes them under their wing. And then there are others who are just kind of lonely and they need a different kind of person. And so I think that probably the next step would be to ask Kevin or others if they want to put together a kind of a plan or a proposal.
Well, before we go that far, we do have 2 new principals starting in the fall, and I think that before we,
Maybe ask them, but.
well, that's, kind of what my thought process was. I think there's already been discussions about changes and things that are going to be different next year with these 2 new principals coming in. And I think we need to let them know what we're thinking, but I think we need to let them run with it first.
You tease me a little bit, we know that there's changes coming, my ears want to know.
Well, all I've heard is that there are, I don't know any specifics, I just know that there's changes afoot.
Perhaps we could invite them in to visit.
Well, they're busy in their other schools, but yes, we probably could at some point, yes. Okay? So. All right, so we're gonna move on. Let's see, we need to review our annual work plan. Let's see, we are, one thing I am going to note is that, we are supposed to be having a meeting April 20th. Because we are going to be getting together on April 25th for our annual meeting, I'm proposing that we cancel our April 20th meeting because we don't have anything to talk about with facilities. We're not prepared to have any kind of presentation, and I'm sure that hurts your feelings a lot.
Which we will have for May.
Which we will have for May. So I am and it's also school vacation, so I am proposing that we cancel the April 20th meeting. So as you'll see, the facilities discussion was supposed to happen on April 20th. It is moving to May 4th.
That discussion is the, looking at the Caverly land. You had asked us to bring in a feasibility study in the Caverly land. It's not available. May 20th, she'll be here in May. April 20th, she'll be here in May.
Shouldn't she come to the May 20th meeting, or May 18th meeting instead of the May 4th meeting?
Yes, Brenda's
Okay.
wanting. She's
Okay.
coming to May 18th.
Okay. Okay. Okay, and then, yeah, so, all right, so, and I don't see anything else on the agenda that looks like, we are supposed to have an equity and diversity presentation, also it says on May 4th. Are we moving that to May 18th as well?
It will be moved because it's not,
Okay.
the equity audit information is not in yet.
we're also having a tech integration presentation on May 18th. So are we having 2 presentations?
Tech integration, yes, unless you don't want to. Do
We'll
you want
talk.
to move tech integration to June?
I see we're supposed to have 3, well, we'll talk about it. I think we might have to move one, just for the sake of a
Actually,
2-hour
tech
meeting.
integration might be May 4th, because that's a Global Ends interim report.
Okay,
I'll look at the calendar and see.
all right. Okay, that looks good. Oh, right, I almost forgot. I guess I did that on purpose. Why don't you do it as part of your superintendent's report?
Okay.
That's it, next.
Okay. First, I wanted to tell you that Padua, your student rep, has been doing some recruiting, and she has recruited a 9th grade student to be your second board rep. Brendan McLaughlin has asked to be a student rep on the board. He'll join us at the May 4th meeting. And you might think about if any of you want to take him under your wing and, you know, be his contact person if he has questions, etc. We usually have 2 reps, and we only have 1. So thank you, Padua, for doing that. One, we can discuss, if you'd like, the trust fund update. Brenda's here. It's in the written report. If you have any questions, we also would like to know, and maybe you want to move this to the facilities discussion, but whether or not you wish us to accept the restricted gift of $10,000 towards an Otter Valley Wetlands Boardwalk. Again, with the understanding that the $10,000 will not build the boardwalk, and so the board would want to, if you accepted it, we need to be transparent with the donor, and the board would be committing to finishing the project, which we cannot tell you the cost of finishing that project unless we spend some money to see what the cost would be.
In the interest of time, because it is 5 of 8, and we still need to talk about the Neshabie and Lester modular units, I would suggest that we move the discussion around the boardwalk to another meeting. Everybody okay with it? Okay. All right. Oh, good. But that's what we were talking about, so that's what, so what's your question?
Well, it was to Brenda on the Ely Fund. Has Peoples been removed as trustee yet?
They're working on that.
There,
Yeah, that's the process. We're working with Steve Schindler again, and he's making the motions to the courts to make that happen. We expect a hearing sometime in May, although we've not yet received notice.
Thank you for coming, Tricia.
Thank you very much.
Because the merger is complete now, so it's no longer People's United Bank, it's M&T Bank.
Oh, I better share that with Steve.
That's why I kind of wanted to bring that to your
Yes.
attention.
I will do that right now. Thank you.
Yep.
So,
Okay,
thank you for coming.
thank you, Joe.
Okay, so, we do need to talk about the modular units. It is 8 o'clock. I would entertain a motion to extend for 20 minutes. Okay.
I do have to leave for work in a couple minutes.
Okay, we'll try and hurry up as fast as we can. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. I'm not sure if she's eyeing that she's opposed or if she's eyeing that she's okay with
Same
that.
with Bill.
I know. Are you opposed?
I'm opposed.
I'm aye,
Okay.
and I'm no longer driving, I'm actually in a parking lot.
Ah, okay.
I've reached my
Alright.
destination, so.
We are extending the meeting 20 minutes, Bill, sorry, everyone else said aye. So, all right, so you want to talk about the modular units? I know we got an email from you in
Yes.
regards to that.
Yes, you did get an advance email so that it wasn't all completely fresh information. The previous board obviously had approved the modular unit for Lester. We attempted to get one in the fall, could not. Have had a new bid come in, and even in the fall, it was looking at a 4 to 5 month waiting period after you approve it. It is now a 7 to 8 month. So even approving it tonight means that it would not be at Lester until sometime in the fall. And of course, if it comes too late and the ground is frozen, you're waiting yet another entire year. Secondarily, we'd like to talk about Neshabie, but let's stick with one at a time. And Vicki is on the call to answer some of those questions too, and she's been patient for 2 hours.
Thank you, Vicki. I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's okay.
So I have just a basic confused question. Is this, didn't we approve this, the previous board? So
Now you have to accept the bid.
We have to accept the bid.
Thank you.
Yes.
Second.
Wow, discussion. What's the bid?
Brenda, what's the bid?
203,950, and I'd actually like you to do a little bit more than accept the bid. I would actually like you to accept purchasing it. So, actually, the Rutland Northeast Board is the one who will have to do the actual work on it because this is funded with ESSER funds, and this will come through the ESSER grant. But it's always nice that we can point to the fact that you, the board that will own it, have accepted and agree with the project. So one of the requirements that we have to do for the ESSER funds is to look at lease versus purchase. And I know we've had conversations about that. And I want to assure you I have heard and I understand and fully respect that modular units are no one's favorite solution, and also that we want them short-term, not long-term. So, and that we are looking into other ideas for a middle school model. So the purchase price was $203,950, and that is right around, it might be about $5,000 higher than we had anticipated in the fall. So that was a huge relief to me. And then the lease purchase is for 36 months. There's an upfront fee of $68,000 and change, and then $3,180 a month. So the break-even point is right at 3.5 years or 41 months. And so I would recommend that you accept this bid as a purchase at the end of 41 months. If we had a lease, we would not have any investment or any capital in the product, just like a lease in a car. It would go back, and in fact, there may be damage and replacement things just based on normal wear and tear. Where if we purchase it at the end of our use, we still have some residual sale value.
Okay, so your hand up.
I forgot the question.
Already?
I
Wow,
did.
okay. So actually, why don't we get someone to make a motion?
I think you did.
Oh, did we already?
Bill and
Okay.
Eric.
That's right, they did,
We'll just
thank you.
modify your motion to accept the purchase bid of a modular unit for $203,950 to place at Lester Central School, Otter Creek Academy at Lester.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
How long is our intention to use this for?
Go ahead.
So,
I mean,
oh,
that's why I look at it as, are we looking to use it more than 3 years, or are we looking for?
is that directed at me? Am I
Yes.
answering that?
You're answering.
Whoever, I don't care who
Okay.
answers it.
Okay, so this is what I heard from you all very clearly. Fleming, don't even think about this beyond 5 years. So, what I see with the modular unit and the conversation that I'd like to have next in regards to Neshabie, is that this is temporary. But no matter what you do, and you know this because we've had multiple conversations, we have some facility issues. We have some shortages in space and capacity at our 2 most northern schools, Lester or Otter Creek Academy at Lester and Neshabie. And we have to do something. And depending on what you choose, you're a minimum 3 to 5 years before you're actually doing something, whether it's construction of a new building or renovating a current building. That's just the reality. The first conversation is starting on May 18th, 2022. So there's no way we'd be looking at doing a vote next November. It's unlikely we would do one next spring, but even if we were able to do one in March of 2023, we wouldn't be constructing until June of 2024. And again, depending on what you are doing for construction, it's unlikely you would be opening whatever you do that following August. So we'd really be looking at an occupancy of somewhere around August 2025 at the most optimistic and aggressive construction schedule.
And the lease is 3 years, or is that longer than 3 years?
You can, so they quoted on the cost of a 36-month, and I confirmed today that if we extend it after the 36 months, it would be $3,180 per month. Which is why we get a break-even point when we get to that $950,000 mark is at 41 months or 3.5 years.
So if we're looking to use it more than 4 years, more than 3 years, then wouldn't the lease be?
I guess that's 42 months.
Lease would not be a better idea.
Is that a fixed rate lease, or would it be subject to inflationary pressures?
I don't know the answer to that. I have to assume it is fixed rate because
Usually capital leases like that are, is it a capital lease?
not a capital lease.
Okay.
It's an operating lease, which is why, much like a car, you don't own anything at the end of it.
Yeah.
But you don't own anything either, right?
So we're really just renting it.
Yeah. What's the setup cost?
So, when we costed this out last summer, it was about $52,000 for the groundwork, the construction to the water and electric, and to the building for internet, phone, that type of thing, and the pad. But the pad is concrete, so I'm not sure if excavation costs have changed or not. These bids just came in on Monday, so the next step is to, with your approval, move forward with finding out and procuring those components of the upfront cost. I forget what you called it, Bill. It was very eloquent. What did you call it? Setup cost.
Okay, so what's everybody thinking?
What happens when you pour concrete in on that swampy ground?
Well, I'm sure they're gonna put down a lot of stone and stuff before.
Yeah.
They're not just
We
gonna.
hope
You did investigate that we can actually put it there and you have a site, right? I mean, there was that advanced work
Yeah.
was already done.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's also a one-story building
Yes.
over what was it, 20 by 30 or something? That's
28 by
not-
52.
That's not a lot of weight.
Okay.
And just to remind you, it basically is going to go at Leicester in front of and actually take over a little bit of the playground. There's some pieces of the playground that will be moved farther back, but that's the general proximity of where it will go.
So what you're asking is whether we want to own it or whether we want to do a lease. If we do a lease, it's a 3-year lease. Do we have options for any other length of time?
It'd be $3,150 per month after that.
Okay,
Exactly.
Right.
all right. Well, I think we all know that even if our best intention is only to use it 5 years, think about the ones we had out here at Otter Valley that were here for how long, Bill?
Way before my time.
Anyway, I think it probably behooves us to own it and then have some residual value out of it afterward.
I would vote on it.
I'm afraid to ask what the value is for a used unit.
Well, we're gonna put it at your house, so, because I heard you're interested in it, so.
Well,
Actually, I can tell you, because part of this process was to also have them investigate whether there were any used units. And he shared with me that there is no or very few used units on the market. He took back a 1999 unit and a 2001 unit, so both of those in excess of 20 years old, and they were sold within days.
For how much?
Yeah.
He didn't tell me how much. He told me they sold immediately, that they were spruced up a little bit at their factory, and that they looked as good as new. I don't see them because they didn't exist when we were asking for used units, because we did ask for used and new units.
Okay. All right, so, we had a motion on the
The
table?
motion is to
Yes.
purchase, accept the
Okay.
purchase bid.
All right, so if everybody's ready to vote? All right, so all those in favor of the motion, which is to purchase a 28 by 52 modular unit for the Leicester school, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay? And Barbara,
She left.
apparently, or she's sleeping. Good Lord.
She got to her.
All right.
destination.
Aye.
Ah, there we go, all
I
right.
didn't unmute, I said, aye. I thought I unmuted,
So
aye.
that's unanimous. Okay, thank you. And the last one you wanted to talk about, Neshameen.
Right, in the email I brought up Neshabie, we have been discussing the capacity needs at Neshabie for several years now. It was part of the bond that failed, it's been part of every facility meeting, the capacity issues, not the modular unit, but the capacity issues. We are at the point now where the space crunch is bad enough that we have started a discussion that basically carves, we need 6 more offices for the services we're providing students. We could carve 3 of them out of the lobby, library, and main office, which would have additional costs of heating, ventilation, lighting, and life safety pieces, and would chop up those spaces. Because we just got this bid in, it is possible to buy 2 out of our ESSER funds and put 1 at Neshabie, eliminating the need to chop up the school, again, as you continue to consider the long-term changes that you may want to make, which, as Brenda said, would be a 3 to 5 year minimum before you could do that anyway. So we are asking you to consider purchasing a second modular unit for Neshabie
With us.
with ESSER funds.
And where would it go?
Where would it go?
We anticipate that it would go behind the shed area, so adjacent to the playground, but behind the larger shed area, so behind the brick building and behind the shed.
So where Bill wanted to build a building, in that space that,
I think the space that he's looking at is further behind, because we would need to also take a look at where the closest proximity to the water, to the septic, and the electricity are.
Right.
This is early conversation for us too. Another area might actually be between the 2 buildings, because that might be closer to those things. It's just the price came in, and the lead time of 8 months is why we're bringing this to you for consideration.
I think Bill was thinking about the space across from the parking lot from the school.
Which again will be 3 to 5.
For sale years ago.
Do you remember that,
Remember
Ray?
that? And
Yes.
I got voted down.
You did try to buy a house.
Right on the corner there.
What's the population
Didn't
projection?
are we
lose money.
a little upset about this?
Yeah, well, obviously,
He
yes.
He tried.
So right now, the population at Neshabie, PK through grade 6 is about 440 students. 78 of those or 76 of those are pre-K. But we have, for next year, we have 3 kindergarten, 3 first grade, and 3 classes all the way through, which is part of the space crunch. This year, we not lucked out, but we were able to open up a classroom because we had somebody not come for this year. We were able to open up a classroom to several interventionists, and that helped with the space crunch, with that class being filled next year, it increases significantly the crunch for space and for supporting our students.
Is that a bubble or is that sort of a steady, and what's the shape of the curve?
It's not a bubble.
Yeah.
It's
The
not a
bubble already went
It's
through.
it's been increasing. The only reason, as she said, that we managed it this year is we had one teacher go out on leave. We were unable to find a replacement, so we split that class and had larger, I think it was third grade classes, had much larger classes there. But with the students coming in next year, we can't do that
So
again.
what's the average average number of kids in each class about?
We have a class size policy, so it depends on the age level. But generally speaking, I would say younger kids are more in the 15 to 18, and the intermediate kids are more in the 18 to 22.
What was that third grade group?
That had gotten up to 2021, I believe, in each of the classrooms.
Yes, we're at 21 right now in each of the classrooms, and the space is really tight.
And we have more than once needed to turn, this year, families that moved into Brandon, we have needed to ask them to go to either Leicester or Lothrop, because we just couldn't get the class sizes that much bigger.
Yeah.
Neshabe's
Need a
enrollments have really rebounded. They are back to 2010 levels. They're not decreasing anymore.
Okay.
So how much space is needed, like how much office space is needed?
6 offices.
So you're thinking about, okay, so wait a minute, let's get a motion on the table, because Derek seems to want to do that.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we purchase with ESSER funds another unit for the Neshabie School.
Okay? Okay. Are we talking about the same size
Second.
building? Yep. Just 1 second, Natalie. Are we talking about the same size, modular unit as what we're doing for Leicester? Are you talking bigger, smaller?
It would be exactly the same because we could piggyback this bid.
Okay. All right. And Natalie, did you have something you want to say?
Second.
A second, okay. Kevin seconded, so we're good. Okay.
Do we get a construction estimate on the building new offices within the current footprint?
Do we have a construction estimate if we were to chop up the lobby, library, and main office? Do we know what that would cost us?
No, not yet.
No, and the issue with that was A, flow of traffic, and B, some safety concerns around narrowing, especially in the lobby, narrowing the hallway. And part of the
ventilation.
library would be taken up as well.
Ventilation issues as well.
Yeah.
I don't like that idea at all. I have 2 kids that go to Neshabie. I know the space needs are real.
Yeah.
It sounds as if it would be very expensive. Like, I was just looking for a point of comparison, but that's.
So what would you move into the modular unit if you had it?
So partly, because this is quick, the thinking, I would need to really think about it a little bit more, but partly what I would do is I would take some of that space and use it for special education offices for a couple of our special educators, because right now we have a number of them that share an office space. I would also use it for up to 3 to 4 interventionists, as well as student spaces. So we need places for the adults to take the kids to do the sessions that they need. So we could have up to 4, possibly 5 interventionists there, several special educators. One of the other pieces that has been of conversation is the Spanish teacher does not have her own classroom, and that really limits the opportunities that can be provided. So we were also thinking that that might be an opportunity there, but a number of different uses, and it would really open up the ability to allow some office space for private conversations, confidential conversations that right now are very hard to have when you have students as well as 2 or 3 other staff members running groups in one space. We also have students being served in hallways right now.
All right, so we wouldn't be using any of that for classrooms necessarily.
No, the only thing that I would consider is Spanish and allowing a Spanish teacher to have her own space.
Other discussion?
I mean, I understand the need for it, I do. But I just see modular unit going up here, modular unit going up there, modular unit going up, it's like it's like we're making a Lego house and not creating what we need to create.
The only thing that would make sense is that if we were to connect the two buildings and have space there. And I don't know if we'd do that with a modular unit or if we would do something completely different. And what
So
that-
that's a good question. I'd love to just give you a little history about that. We can't, the modular units cannot actually and will not actually be physically connected to the buildings,
Okay.
either one of them. And the reason is fire codes. If they were, or we were to construct something at some point that connected the two buildings or added extensions, we would have to fully install sprinklers throughout the whole buildings. And that's not a bad thing, right? That's still a good thing. But as you all know, it's harder to do it when you have to renovate a space than when you have, a ground up build.
Natalie?
This to me is a no-brainer. We're getting funds from ESSER. We purchase it with those funds. We turn around and we sell it and we make some money in the end in 3 to 5 years. We've already tried to make improvements to the school that the community has not supported in the past. We can't pass a school budget. We need space for our kids. We need space for our kids with special needs. This is necessary. I feel like this is just a no-brainer. Let's just do it. I'm all for it.
Move the question.
Move the question.
All right, so we're ready to vote? All of those in favor of the motion, which is to buy another modular unit the same as Lester for Neshabie, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
Okay. All right,
Any opposed?
nope. We have bought a modular unit for Neshabie too. Okay, so.
Thank you.
No, thanks. All right,
Yeah,
so
thank
we
you
do
very
have a
much.
meeting on Wednesday, April 20th. We do have our informational virtual, it is a virtual informational meeting on Monday, April 25th, 6:30 online. So be there, be square, and I would take a motion to adjourn. Goodbye, everyone.